Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome back to 10 Count. I'm Steve Fall, but on today's edition, I am joined by the Enforcer, Arn Anderson. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Steve. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course, it's a pleasure to have you here, and there's so much to talk about because you have so many things moving around right now. But first, Valentine's Day is on the horizon, and if you go to boxofgimmicks.com, you can buy Arn Anderson merchandise. Now, minutes ago, you were just talking to your wife. Wouldn't that be a great gift? You know, you going to boxofgimmicks.com, me buying my wife an Arn Anderson shirt. I bet you have a whole box inside your house. Isn't that a good idea?
Now, it's a great idea for you to do all those things. If we get any more Arn Anderson stuff in this house, it's going to be running out of the windows and under the doors. No, we got two things I'm really proud of, Steve. We finally got some Horseman jackets, similar to the original ones, that are really well made, double lined, and the monogram on the back is top shelf. It's just like the original. And hats, sweet hats, different colors, same thing. And I've been trying to get those for the fans that have asked about them over the years. And we finally found the right company, and we got them right. So if you want a nice gift for somebody, it's on Box of Gimmicks, and it's in the Horseman store as a separate window. So anything that you may want, we should have.
Oh, man, I can't wait for my wife's face when she sees I got her a Four Horseman jacket and hat for Valentine's Day. It's going to be smiles, I believe, but we'll have to wait when that happens. But there is so much more happening with you, because the last time that you had a book come out was in the year 2000, 23 years ago. But with Kickstarter and fans donating, suddenly a graphic novel of your career is on the horizon. What was the idea behind this? Why a graphic novel, and why have a new book now?
Well, I've been asked over the years many times, two questions that I was asked by fans were, number one, what's Ole doing? Number two, when are you going to write another book? And I didn't feel like I was at a point in my career where there was a stoppage or it was a defining moment. But once I left WWE, I moved to AEW, and I started having fun again, and enjoying myself and having a more relaxed schedule and all those good things that make for independent thought about other subjects. I thought, well, Dirk Manning, who's with Source Point Press, got a hold of me, and the same people that did Shivani's comic book said, would you like to do one? And I thought about it for a minute, and I was going to just say, no, I don't have time really, but I do have time. And when we talked about the project, Dirk, said, hey, this can be any way you want. So I said, how about this? How about a half autobiography and a half comic book? There's going to be some stories in there that's going to curl some people's toes that are actually 100% correct. And it's just part of the process of growing into being a man and growing in this business. So I thought it was time, and we'll see. It's done. It's in the final stages of being produced. So hopefully, again, fans will enjoy it.
I think so, because again, the last time you wrote a book was in the year 2000. And at that time, WCW was still a thing. ECW was still a thing. Like, the world has completely changed with the involvement of AEW, the brand that you are involved with now. And there's just so much happening there right now, because you have AEW Revolution in March 5th coming up. And right now, we might, as the storylines are building on TV, we might have MJF defending his gold against Bryan Danielson in an hour-long match. Now, if this happens, if all the stars align, who do you think is going to win that match?
Well, when you put yourself in a position to wrestle an hour, that alone is pretty cocky. I can count the guys on one hand that can actually do that. Do it well, that group becomes much smaller.
Yeah.
And I think Bryan Danielson found his niche. We all knew he was a fantastic competitor, wrestler, businessman, all those things. It just took the office a while to catch up with us. I think MJF is, he kind of reminds me of me a little bit, in the fact that he believes his own and we know what we're saying here.
Yes, of course.
And you have to in this business. You got to be confident, and if you want to excel, you got to be overconfident. But you better have the goods.
Mm.
You know, I know he's training. I see all his training videos. There's one thing to talk the talk, but man, when it comes down to getting with it, bell to bell, you better be able to back it up, especially if you're at the level he can, because the kid can talk. And I catch myself getting pissed at him myself. I go, okay, hold on here. That's his way of getting inside everybody's head. And I think it's going to be match of the year, have no doubt.
Wow.
I don't know how much you put, stock wise in that, but I think it's going to be one of those. It's going to be at a pace that you can follow. There's going to be a story to follow. There's going to be all kind of drama. And the best way I could probably describe it is, if it shakes out what it's capable of, it'll have every veteran, every wrestling fan, anybody to do with wrestling, every production person talking about it for a long time.
Yeah, I think this match has potential, like you just mentioned, being, you said, the match of the year, and we are already in like the first half of the year, not even. And the idea of this, an hour-long match between Bryan Danielson, the greatest wrestler in the world right now, versus MJF, the greatest talker in the world right now, this is magic in the making. I cannot wait for AEW Revolution March 5th. Super excited. But then there's so many stars in AEW right now that people are clinging to. One for me is Ricky Starks. I think he has just oozing charisma. Who do you think is a breakout star in 2023 in AEW that might have, had some eyeballs on them in 2022, but 2023 seems like their year?
Well, I agree. Ricky has got everything it takes. Obviously, Moxley is already a superstar.
Right.
There's no holes in anything he does. Talk, wrestle, fight, carry himself. He's incredible. It amazes me that Chris Jericho, every time you turn around, is reinventing himself into something different, and it's totally accepted by our audience. So, having 9 lives and 10 different disguises is a great thing for him. Big Will,
Yeah,
we're familiar with, right?
of course.
Powerhouse. I look at that kid, and he's got such a tremendous attitude. He's such a gentleman when he's not in the ring. And then once he steps through those ropes, man, he changes gears. And I think he has unlimited potential. The roster, I'm going to miss a lot of people, but there are so many people that perform at different levels and are willing. These kids, to a fault, I believe sometimes, are willing to put their bodies out there for the fans and sacrifice themselves. That, man, it's hard for me to watch sometimes. Sometimes I'm watching kind of with one squinted eye, and sometimes I can't watch just some of the things they do. And I commend their courage and their dedication to their craft and the dedication to the fans. I just, I worry about them because the high impact level of some of the things you see on our show is unparalleled in the history of the business.
Yeah, I don't know how Darby Allin's walking a lot of the times after I see a match with him. I'm wondering, how does he get up in the morning out of bed and not just collapse to the floor? But hey, kudos to him, because he's making a name for himself, and he's been doing it for quite a long time. But with AEW, some wrestlers like Cody Rhodes left the company, and he recently won the Royal Rumble, and you had a huge part of his AEW run. Have you spoken to him since AEW, and have you spoken to him after Royal Rumble?
Yeah, we have. We text, and I was with Cody from day one. First time he walked in one of the buildings and was looking around. He was still in high school. I have a rich history with his family, certainly his father and his brother. And when the decision was being made to leave, there were going to be a lot of backlash and a lot of different opinions. But here's the way that thing was based. When you in this business, wrestlers are always changing companies all the time. It's the history. And when you make that decision based on the birth of your child and the things you want out of your marriage and being a new father, how can it be the wrong decision?
True.
And Tony Khan is a great human being. He cares about the talent in as much as I'm sure he hated losing Cody, but if that was his decision, he was going to support it. You know, there's no ill feelings. We're all friends. All the talent are friends, or not all, but a lot of us are friends. The fact that we work for rival companies, you know, that's just the way it is. Everybody can't work for the same company. And think a lot of Cody. I think he's going to do wonders for their company. I'm so happy for the success that he's enjoying. He's going to make them glad they got him. And I'm sure there's a lot of days we're going to wish we still had him, but you know, he's a A-class talent, that's for sure.
Yeah, he seems like an A-class type of person as well, because I know he does a lot of community outreach programs and charities as well. So, you know, not just a good wrestler in the ring, he's a good person out of the ring as well. Also, I talked with Brandy Rhodes once, and she was like, you know, best father in the world. So it seems that everyone loves Cody Rhodes. So we'll have to see about that. But though Brock Anderson, your son, is doing great in AEW with Brian Pillman Jr. and this new kind of tag team unit. How do you feel Brock Anderson is doing on AEW TV? Because I know people want to see more of him. How do you feel?
Well, he's not had a lot of matches, and that's just the way things are with our television rotation, and getting all the talent that's under contract on TV is a tough task. He may have had 45 matches. I think he has aptitude. Just because he's my son, I think he has a great attitude. He has a great respect for the business, but I think he has an aptitude. And we've been doing some independent stuff, and we're getting some different shots around that are travelable. I guess that's not a word, but that's what we know what we mean.
Yes.
That are not too far away and not too hectic to get to, or all those things. Brock has been doing well on the amount of time he has in. I think Brian Pillman is a diamond in the rough. I just think he needs some guidance, which I'm willing to give him. And I think they will make a good team. They've had a few matches, of course, at Ric Flair's last match. They had, wrestled the Mortons, which was an honor for all of us. And Brian and he were just down at Orlando, where we film our dark episodes. They had a match down there, and it went well. I think we're going to do okay. Make no mistake, it's not a horseman thing. These are two young kids that I think can learn from each other and learn from everybody else that's on the roster. And tag matches is kind of where I specialize. I think I have a decent head for what needs to go on out there and make a successful tag team. So we're going to run with this thing and see how it goes. Can't tell you how much it means to me being gone all these years to get to spend this time with my son. Just being on the road, just flying in the day before TV and watching a baseball game or a football game on TV at our room, ordering a pizza, and just, hey, getting to know him. And it's biggest thrill of my life right now, to be honest with you.
That's outstanding. I'm a father of 3, and I completely relate to you. When you're away, you're thinking about your children, but you're also trying to make money and make a living for your children. So it becomes this like heavy burden of, am I doing the right thing? I am, but also, am I hurting someone as well? And that's obviously a tough decision for any father. But with house shows, AEW just announced they're going to start putting on house shows, non-televised events, and a lot of wrestling fans and media got very excited about this because there's so many people on the AEW roster, including your son, that are not on TV. You think this house show loop is going to allow these talents who are not showcased on TV to get more reps in the ring in front of a live AEW audience?
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope it's a situation now you're going to have to put some top names on those to draw the crowd. But I hope there's a blend. I hope, say, 3 of those matches are the young guys that you think have promise, that are going to be a future star in the business somewhere with somebody, and put them on and let them get that exposure. Here's the reality, Steve. The only way to get better in this business, two things. You got to wrestle somebody every day that's better than you, and you got to wrestle every day. It's reps. I got to be able to go back, and when I'm making my trip after the show, I got to be able to recap in my head, what mistakes did I make? Relive it. What would I have done? Have someone in the car that can advise you and go, hey, you might have did this here and there. When it's fresh in your head, that's how we all learned, making trips, traveling to the next town. But the main thing is wrestling consecutive days. That's the way you're ever going to get in ring shape. That's the only way you're going to get in the groove of learning the business, mechanics, psychology, connecting with the fans, all those things that are so important into becoming a star in this business.
Right. I think being in front of, like, so you're mentioning how, you and your son are traveling to different organizations, having matches, but that's a wrestling fan audience. I guess the AEW crowd going to a house show, I think, will be completely different, because I've gone to some AEW Dynamites and Rampages, and the audience, it is like being enthralled. Like, it's like a rock concert. Like, everyone's going wild for everybody. And I think allowing the talent that are not showcased on Dynamite or Rampage in front of an AEW house show audience, I think that's going to do really well for these talents, with reps, of course, in wrestling someone that is better than them. So hopefully we see some of that, because I am so excited when I saw that announced, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago. I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. This is exactly what we need for wrestling, because it feels like wrestling is like on a boom right now. Like, every organization is doing well, making money, wrestling business. And I think everyone's doing great business. Though I do want to talk about something else, because, WrestleMania season is on the horizon. And WrestleMania 18, at the time, you were retired. But somehow, someone either convinced you or you convinced someone that I should go spine bust The Undertaker in a Ric Flair match. Whose idea was this? Because I absolutely love it.
I don't actually know whose idea it was, but I jumped all over it. There wasn't any of those, when they said, hey, how'd you like to get involved with the Taker Flair match? There wasn't any shuffling of the feet. No, that's okay. You damn right. Yes. Point me to the entrance.
Yes.
Yeah, it was, people ask me, what's the highest point in your career and best match and all that. Now, I wasn't in the match, but I was involved in the finish of it. That's it. It stands alone. Just hearing that many people react, and I think it was just the way it was set up. It was such a perfectly executed screw job. Everybody thought in that building, because I just suddenly appeared on the screen. They didn't see me run in, no camera shot, because I low ran by the rail all the way down there, and the match is going on. Obviously, everybody's looking at the ring. So by the time I got to ringside, it's like I just popped up. And it was so well executed. When I hit that spine buster, it was a reaction of, it wasn't like a baby face, oh, that's Arn Anderson. It was a, holy shit, this may actually happen. Flair may actually beat him with this, because of just the execution, rolling out of the ring, hiding, the referee shaking it off, making the count. It was just so well done by those guys. And it was, it was the highlight of my wrestling career.
Wow. It's amazing, because the pop you got was just, was beautiful. Seeing that spine buster, everyone went buck wild. But that wasn't your first WrestleMania. WrestleMania 5 with the Brain Buster taking on the Strike Force in the Trump Plaza. That was your first WrestleMania, and at the time, your only WrestleMania until 18. What was that experience like? Because obviously, you were doing so much work with the Four Horsemen, and now here you are in the WWF and Brainbusters WrestleMania. What was that experience like? Because at the time, WrestleMania was, and still is, one of the biggest shows of the year.
Yeah, and the crew was not, well, I won't say the size, but I guess the point I'm trying to make, everybody didn't get on WrestleMania every year. It was like a reward for the years, guys that got over, hard work, guys that have been loyal, all those good things. You got a spot on WrestleMania. And then that one, we had a great team to work with, Martel and Santana, right?
Yep.
Strike Force.
Yep. Strike Force.
And God, what a good looking team they were. And we were basically just a vehicle for them to shoot their angle with Martel turning heel. And we knew that. It was an honor and a privilege, only being there the short amount of time that we had been to be in a match. And they trusted us to pull this angle off for them. It was a big deal. WrestleMania week is a big deal. It's an event. It's a happening, and the fans come from all around the world to come see it. The number of different nations, I guess, that are represented fan wise that week is just something to behold.
Yeah, it's turned into quite a phenomenon with every organization and wrestling coming together in that one weekend as well, and enjoying the fruits of everyone's labors. But Bobby Heenan was the manager of the Brain Busters. Before we wrap this up, I need to hear a Bobby Heenan story, because Bobby Heenan, to me, greatest manager of all time. Maybe we can argue that later on, but I think Bobby Heenan is the greatest. Do you have a Bobby Heenan story that you could share?
Well, just in general, who he was and what he was, more so than an individual story. Bobby Heenan, like if he came in and sat down beside me right now and I went, Bobby, I like that hoodie he's got on. Before I could get on out of my mouth, he would have a joke or a dig or something coming in right behind it. He did not have, I don't think, past about an 8th grade education. I think that if we do your research, that may not be totally correct, but it's pretty close. Yeah. But he was just brilliant, and the things he said and the quips and the intelligence with which he spoke. And make no mistake, if you ever saw Bobby have a talent grab him and run him down the apron and run him into that post, Bobby Heenan could take bumps as good as any wrestler in the game. So he could wrestle, he could talk, he was intelligent, he was a great representative of the company. And when you were a part of his family, you got an immediate rub that you were going to be used properly. You were going to be a top guy. And when they started the Weasel chant, buddy, you might as well just hang on for a minute, because it would deafen anybody that was in that arena. And it was just because Bobby was so over.
Yeah, Bobby Heenan. Again, anytime he was in the ring, those Weasel chants and him actually wearing a Weasel costume is it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in wrestling. And it is quite an honor to talk to you about him as well, because not everyone gets to hear Bobby Heenan's story, because not everyone got to, meet Bobby Heenan. I met him once at a WrestleCon many years ago, obviously when he was still alive with us, and he wasn't in the best health. So the version that I saw was clearly the version that some people weren't used to. And you sharing a great story of Bobby Heenan, giving quips. The fact that he had a joke ready for anything seems to be like he could have been the Johnny Carson of the world. Like he could have had his own show. He did for a little while when they changed up primetime wrestling for like 6 weeks and gave him his own show. And then USA Network was like, I'm sorry, what's going on here?
Yeah. I mean, he was that good of an entertainer that he could have done anything. He could have been sitting in Johnny Carson's chair or sitting beside him in Ed McMahon's chair. He would have shined in either one. And, he had a beautiful family. His wife and daughter, they were all so close. It's one of those that when you lose, a treasure like Bobby Heenan, just to the world in general, such a huge loss.
Yes. I 100% agree. One final question though, because I didn't bring it up. Your podcast, The Orange Show. What a great podcast you got going on, because sharing your stories of the road, the ups and downs of the wrestling world is incredible. But a few weeks ago on this, you mentioned that your AEW contract is up in 1.5 years. Now, when that's done, are you going to retire? And what does Arn Anderson go do?
Well, Brock's got about, I think in May, his is up, and then I have another year past that. I'm having a great time. I'm enjoying working for the company, and I'm going to certainly, get that last year. Now, what they have for Brock and I together going forward, I don't know, but just I look at things, and I always have. going all the way back to, WCW, when your first contracts came out. When you get a guaranteed contract, your wife has the luxury of planning your life because they do it anyway. And and to know how much time and it be, something that's not going to change and all that, you can map your life out. That gives me another year or over a year and a half almost, to help Brock every which way I can. And it takes a long time to learn this business, locker room etiquette and travel and all these things, going through airports, what sign means what. Everything is, you get some of these major airports plus international travel. If you're not paying attention and you don't have somebody there to kind of guide you, it's not that easy to learn,
Yeah.
We're not jump off in, I was just up in Canada, in Toronto, not too long ago, a week or 10 days ago, and you jump off, first thing you run into are a bunch of clear machines. And you better, again, we're back to this era of you better be savvy on the computer stuff. And for a kid getting off a plane and looking at that and not knowing what he's doing, it can be a little bit unraveling. So I will stay with AEW as long as they want me. That's my one thing is, and I said that after I left, well, I was canned by WWE. I don't want to be anywhere that I'm not wanted anyway. Not for 1 minute, not for any amount of money, not for 1 second. If at the end of the contract, if they would like for me to stay aboard in some limited capacity, would love to.
Outstanding, because I think the wrestling world needs more Arn Anderson. Until we don't anymore, I don't think that'll ever be possible. But I gotta say, it's been an honor and a privilege sitting here and talking to Arn Anderson about everything underneath the sun, and especially the fact that boxinggimmicks.com is the place to get your Valentine's Day presents for your missus, your mister, your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad, whoever you're buying Valentine's Day presents for. Boxing Gimmicks, 4 Horsemen hats, jackets for you. It'll be filled with love from Arn Anderson. I just want to say I cannot wait for that book to come out. There's so much happening with you in the Arn Show, the podcast. Folks, a privilege, an honor. I've been Steve Fall. He's been Arn Anderson. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.